Breaking news. The Mandalorian is being turned into a movie. And I think the biggest question on everyone's mind is it going to be a romance film between Frogman and Frog Lady so that we can finally get the follow-up to their relationship?
I sure fucking hope so.
Me
If
too.
I'm
Me
being
too.
honest.
It'd be a nice change of pace for Star Wars.
I mean, it's better than Bo-Katan and Din. Please don't make that
Oh,
happen.
come on now. We don't need all that hate over here on This is the Wayseekers. Welcome back to an emergency episode of This is the Wayseekers, a podcast for Star Wars fans by Star Wars fans. My name's Austin SWE. I'm here with my co-host Scotty Holiday. Scotty, how are you doing on this Mandalorian news day?
I am so excited. I'm as hard as Beskar steel.
I love that for you, and I can't disagree with you. New episodes of our podcast usually release every other Friday at 8 a.m. Central Time, but not today. This would usually be our off week, but instead, we have some of the most shocking Star Wars news I think we've gotten in a while, or at least I was super shocked. So, Scotty, why don't you tell us what we got going on today?
Yeah, so we've got some really crazy news today. It's just a random Tuesday, and Star Wars decided they were going to give us our first official update on The Mandalorian and the Ahsoka series. And they published a little article to StarWars.com, and I figured it'd be fun to go over it together.
Yes.
So, StarWars.com reads The Mandalorian and Grogu journeys to the big screen. The Mandalorian and Grogu are embarking on a new adventure to movie theaters. Directed by Jon Favreau and produced by Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy, and Dave Filoni, The Mandalorian and Grogu will go into production in 2024, which
Ooh,
is this year, if you
yeah.
forgot already.
Quick turnaround.
For real. Jon Favreau said, I've loved telling stories set in the rich world that George Lucas created. The prospect of bringing The Mandalorian and his apprentice Grogu to the big screen is extremely exciting. And then Kathleen Kennedy said, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have ushered into Star Wars two new and beloved characters, and this new story is a perfect fit for the big screen. The Mandalorian and Grogu will lead Lucasfilm's ongoing feature development slate, including films helmed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, James Mangold, and Dave Filoni, who is also currently developing Ahsoka Season 2, among those in the works.
Woohoo!
Which, not only, like I said, did we get a Mando update, but an Ahsoka Season 2 update? This is
Yeah.
exciting.
Entire Mandoverse update. It's really cool because I think last episode I was saying how we kind of have no idea where everything's going to go. Is the story about to get wrapped up within one movie? I think this is some of the most shocking news, like I said. I mean, I don't know if that's just because I was just sitting there not expecting anything, open up Twitter, and all of a sudden it's like, The Mandalorian and Grogu are coming to theaters. And it's like, what? I mean, I can't say it came out of nowhere. I know we've seen
Hmm.
rumors in the past of this happening, people saying season 4 is being turned into a movie, and then people were saying, no, that's actually not the case. They're still developing season 4. What's
Yeah.
interesting, though, is I saw Deadline kind of have this kind of comment that was passing or throwaway. They said basically on Twitter, it's not yet been confirmed whether Pedro Pascal will reprise his role as the Mandalorian for the new film. At present, a fourth season of the series is also in development. So, season 4 is still in development? How's that work?
That is like the most confusing quote unquote news I think I've ever heard. It's like Pedro Pascal, we don't know if he's a part of this movie,
Right.
but also season 4 is in development. Um
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie, when I first saw, because I saw it on Instagram, and at first I was like, oh, are they gonna release like some Mando episodes in the movie theater? And then that's
Right.
when you texted me and I was like, oh no, this is like a bigger thing.
Yeah.
I I don't know how I'm feeling about it though.
Yeah, I don't really know either. I think I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. I think that there's a lot of things that could be good, could be bad here. So I don't really know. I do think, though, that with there being a season 4 of The Mandalorian still in development and a Mandalorian movie, do you think it's possible that the Mandalorian show will continue to be Bo Katan's show and then Pedro Pascal, the Mandalorian, will be kind of moving to the big screen?
That's a really great question because it's something I kind of started thinking about the more I was kind of just thinking of what this movie could even be about. And I know that
Right.
was a big thing with season 3. They had said that, oh, the Mandalorian encompasses like multiple different people, even though
Yeah.
like it didn't when the show first started, but that's for a whole nother episode.
Right.
But I like that idea. You know, when we
Mhm.
did our The Good and Bad of 2023 episode, that's something we kind of talked about, is that we liked Bo Katan in season 3, but if it wasn't for her, season 3 was kind of a flop. So
Yeah.
part of me also wonders if maybe this is Disney trying to get Pedro Pascal back physically by
Right.
kind of waving a movie in front of him, being like, well, we're going to do something that HBO's not doing. We're going to give
Mhm.
you a movie to try to entice him to come back, because I think that they want the helmet off again. But like,
Uh-huh.
I really don't think Pedro Pascal is in it anymore,
Right.
and not physically, but like mentally. I don't really think he's been that into it. At least not in season 3. It didn't seem that way.
Yeah, yeah, his absence was really felt. And I think that you're kind of onto something here. It's possible that this is kind of an incentive to put him back in a movie, something, because this is going to have a bigger budget for less runtime. I'm assuming
Yeah.
the budget's going to be similar to what we've been seeing with The Mandalorian, but
Mhm.
that budget has to cover 8 episodes, so 6 to 8 hours. Here, we'll
True.
have 2.5 hours, and it'll be probably 250 million, which is still ridiculous, and is going to probably be a huge risk, especially
Yeah.
nowadays, as we've been seeing. But I also think that this kind of brings up the question of how successful is Disney Plus. I mean, we know that we've
Yeah.
been hearing that it's not exactly profitable, and it probably won't be profitable for a long while. So is this kind of a sign of that? Because this is their most successful show
Ooh.
on Disney Plus, and they're
Yeah.
moving it
This
to the big
this was like
screens.
the day opener for Disney Plus, like one
Yeah,
of the one shows that they had ready to go to, like their
exactly.
flagship show almost, you could say.
Mhm.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the budget too, because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, will they have a movie budget, or is it going to just be the same budget that they've already had? And
Mhm.
will we see maybe less volume
Oh, I hope
usage?
so.
I hope
Y
so too. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, are we going to do some on location? Because if we go back to Mandalore, I want to see a little more depth.
Mhm. Yeah. I think what also is happening here is after season 3 and kind of the reception to it, and also the way that story went, I think that The
Hmm.
Mandalorian is kind of looking for that reinvention, the thing to get people interested again. The
Yeah.
story that they had going at first with the first 2 seasons of, Din Djarin kind of questioning the ways of the Watch and kind of the ways
Hmm.
he was brought up, his whole mindset really changing by becoming a father to this cute little green baby alien, and just seeing that adventure to the point where he removes his helmet. The number one rule, the number one boundary he set, he takes it off for the child. And, I feel like they kind of moved away from that with the Book of Boba Fett and season 3. A lot of it, like you said,
Yeah.
it kind of seems like they can't really get Pedro Pascal on set. So I think that this is going to be interesting, but I think that the movie is a sign that they are going to be reinventing The Mandalorian in some way, whether there's a season 4 or not. It seems like this is really going to be a new day for The Mandalorian.
That's so true. I couldn't agree more. And the funny thing is, like, if we think about kind of where we left off at the end of season 3, you know, Bo-Katan and the Armorer reignited the Great Forge on Mandalore.
Mhm.
Din was then adopted Grogu, and he was tasked by the Armorer to take him on his journey. And
Yeah.
we also saw that Din is now being like an independent contractor for the New Republic and the Outer Rim. Not a marshal, but an independent contractor. And they've also
Yes.
settled down on Navarro. So it did really feel like a bookend. And
Mhm.
I will say I appreciate that this shows, at least to me, that Disney and Lucasfilm know that Din and Grogu are good characters and they want
Yeah.
to invest more in these characters, because if they didn't, I think they kind of would have let their story fizzle out maybe for a bit, maybe
Right.
until closer to the actual Mandoverse climactic movie. But
Yeah.
I like that it shows that they care about these characters and that they think that they could honestly have their own movie, because not every
Right.
character that's been introduced with the newer characters, at least in this kind of Disney Plus streaming show era, could necessarily hold their own movie.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's a great way to kind of set up for that Dave Filoni movie. Just in terms
Mhm.
of audiences, I think one of the biggest talking points about Dave Filoni's Heir to the Empire movie is, are people going to understand that? You know, it's been on
Mhm.
Disney Plus this whole time, and all the shows that tie into this movie that are going to, you know, lead up to the crossover have all been on Disney Plus. You know, some 70-year-old who's going on $5 Tuesday, who's never heard of Disney Plus in his life, is, oh, there's a new Star Wars movie coming out. I remember watching that in my 30s. Let me get some nostalgia. And then they're like, what the fuck, who's that orange bitch, like they're gonna be so confused.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, "Where's Luke Skywalker?" And it's like,
Right.
well, and we might see him, but who knows?
Yeah, who knows? So I think that this movie is going to kind of help people kind of get set up, because obviously the
Mhm.
whole thing they're trying to do here is recreate the MCU. And I don't think that they're going to be able to do that, have a huge climactic movie at the end without kind of setting that up beforehand. And I think that this whole movie is just kind of going to be a setup for it. I know you're not a Marvel fan, but they kind of did this with Avengers Infinity War and Avengers
Mhm.
Endgame, two movies. It kind of leads into the second one. And I think that that is something that I think could happen here. I think that we're going to see Carson Teva, after working with Hera, he's going to send Din Djarin probably on some mission to learn more about what's going on with the Imperial Remnant.
Mhm.
And Din Djarin's going to discover, like, oh, this is real serious, and kind of validate what Hera's been saying all along. And then that's where Carson Teva is probably going to become like the Samuel L. Jackson, kind of the Nick Fury, where he's going to bring everyone together, be like, there's a larger universe out there. And
See, when you get on your Marvel shit, you always confuse me because you say Samuel L. Jackson, and I'm like, Carson Teva's gonna be Mace Windu? What? I'm like, and he's gonna be like, "Let's get these motherfuckers" or something? I'm like, "Where?"
Yes.
The Nick Fury. Okay.
Yeah.
Vaguely understand the reference.
Yeah, Nick Fury, he's the one that brings everyone together. He's the one that shows up in people's houses at night and is like, I can't remember what he says, but
Oh my god, that sounds terrifying.
yeah. But I mean, it makes sense, right? That Carson Teva, he's the one that like knows everybody. So
He's the
him,
link.
yeah, him being like, oh, Bo Katan, come on, Hera, come on, oh, Ezra, bringing everybody together. And that's where we're going to get the big team up in the second movie. So I think that this is going to kind of be the lead up to that. Do you think this movie could be anything different?
I don't necessarily think it's going to be something completely one off on its own. I don't necessarily think it's going to lead into the climactic Heir to the Empire Mandoverse finale
Hmm.
movie, but I think it'll definitely plant seeds. Part of me
Yeah.
wonders if they're just going to be like, fuck it, and do like almost a Mandoverse Heir to the Empire trilogy, because if we think
Yeah.
about it, this whole thing's been compared to Heir of the Empire, and I'm pretty sure that book series was 3 books.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some precedents that's set on
Hmm.
things that they could do. Part of me also wonders, I'm like, do they actually want to use Zeb now? So they're like,
Ooh,
okay, we need a movie budget to have this big CGI character.
that'll
And
be nice.
it's funny you mentioning Carson Teva being kind of like the one that connects everything, or the Nick Fury. I almost feel like Zeb could also play a part of that role too, because he's already
That's
working
true.
with the Adelphi squadron, or at least at the Adelphi base. He knows Carson Teva. They're both got their little jumpsuits. Oh, but Zeb's is blue. That's besides the point. Either way, I'm like, I'm hoping that Zeb will have a role to play in this as well. And I think he
Hmm.
could also be a part of the link and getting kind of the big team up, because he
Right.
knows a handful of people too, and a lot
Yeah.
better than Carson.
Yeah. I will say though that I think that if there is like any connections to the second movie, I think that just based on the way they're reporting this movie, that it'd be something in the end, probably like an end credit scene type thing, or like the end of the
Mhm.
movie, you know. But I think that the main focus of this movie is going to be Din Djarin and Grogu, just based on the way that they were reporting that this is the Mandalorian and Grogu. A lot of people are talking about that being the title. I don't know how I
Mhm.
feel about that. I mean, I
I
don't
hope
hate
it's
it.
a working title.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I don't hate it, but it just feels very on the nose. I feel like there's something more creative you can come up with. But then again, the whole point is that they're like trying to get people to come see The Mandalorian and Grogu. So,
I mean, at least it's not like Djarin, a Star
yeah.
Wars story, or
Yeah.
like Mando, a Star Wars story. Either way, if they keep it as the Mandalorian and Grogu, just imagine it's going to be the Mandalorian and like Times New Roman, and then
Mhm.
and Grogu is going to be like in bold, and
Right.
it'll have like a little fancy like color gradient or some shit.
Yeah.
Because they just, I don't know what they're doing with their logos, but
And
regardless.
they're kicking themselves that they can't name it The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda.
Oh my god, Baby Yoda, a Star Wars story. Perfect. Let's copyright that so they can't use it. So, obviously, no, by this point in time, Thrawn is back in the main galaxy. We saw
Mhm.
that in the Ahsoka series. But with this movie kind of being the first Mandalorian movie, I think it's a bit too soon for Thrawn to be the villain. So,
Mhm.
if not him, who do you think could be the villain of this movie?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think that it's possible that it could just be the Imperial remnant that's in the way. I think that,
Mhm.
like I said, I really think that this movie is going to be more about Din Djarin and Grogu discovering what's going on so that the galaxy and the New Republic is like actually made aware and is taking this whole threat seriously. But no, I don't think that Din Djarin and Thrawn are going to like face off in this movie or anything. But I do think
Mhm.
that he's going to be the one to discover like, no, Thrawn is back. Well, I don't know because Ezra already knows that. Do you think that they
That
would like take Ezra's word for it, but not Hera's?
I think with Ezra coming back because of the sacrifice that Ezra made, and that was a big thing. They celebrated it on Lothal. Like it was a
Hmm.
well-known thing that Ezra Bridger sacrificed himself to
Right.
get Thrawn out of the main galaxy. So I think with him coming back, it's like further proof. Like, yeah, I got back, but the only way I got back was because Thrawn got back.
Right.
So I think they would believe them, which then makes me wonder, could it be somebody from the Shadow Council? I know a name we
Yeah.
hear thrown around a lot is Ray Sloan,
Yeah. That's
because
possible.
she's a Grand Admiral as well, right?
Yes. Yes. And realistically, if this story and the Aftermath trilogy are meant to be on the same level of canon, kind of makes no sense for her to not be there. Like she should have been in that Shadow Council scene. I was actually surprised that she wasn't, but I'm sure
Yeah.
they could write some way, but that's a good choice. Like I said, I think it's just going to be somebody empire related or, I think it's going to
Oh,
be one of those things where it's just people obstacles in the way. There's not going to be really a villain, but I'd love to be
okay.
wrong.
But if you had to pick one,
Hmm.
like I said, Ray Sloan's a good option. We saw Brendel Hux. We know he's active.
Yeah. But then the thing is like would any of those be well, I guess Thrawn's not like a fighter, but I don't know. I just don't know. I don't see how those characters would be like main villains in this movie because I feel like whatever Din Djarin's going to be doing is like low key, like sneaking in type shit. So,
Yeah, like what if we get something similar to when him and Mayfeld snuck into that Imperial base? I think that
mhm.
could be something cool.
Oh yeah.
Imagine him coming face to face with Ray Sloan, Brendel Hux,
Hmm.
maybe even Thrawn. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. But that was one of the biggest things that I was curious about. I'm like, who could be the antagonist of this film?
You know
And
who would have made a great one?
who?
Moff Gideon.
RIP, possibly. Who knows? Maybe that could be the reveal that one of Moff Gideon's clones is
No.
alive.
Please
I don't want that,
no.
but yeah,
I
I don't want it, but it could happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like that would have been cool because obviously they were so desperate to just wrap that up, but I feel like well they didn't know at the time that they were going to be making a movie probably, but I think that that would have been something cool to save for this. It's like in a movie you could have the final face off between Din Djarin and Moff Gideon. But whatever. It's not possible, so I guess we shouldn't harp on that.
Yeah.
One thing I kind of wanted to talk about though is Jon Favreau directing. Obviously,
Mm,
he's been the showrunner of The Mandalorian. He's directed season 2, episode 1, The Marshal, which honestly was a very
amazing.
cinematic episode, great episode. So it makes total sense why he's doing it. And I think it's interesting to see Jon Favreau kind of get back into the movies, or not back into the movies. He directed The Lion King recently, but obviously, he did
Mhm.
Iron Man 1 and 2, he did Chef, all movies that I love, and so I'm honestly very excited to see what he does with a Star Wars movie, especially because The Marshal already felt like a Star Wars movie, if we're being honest.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I kind of went onto Wikipedia, not to be confused with Wikipedia, and because I was like, okay, what has Jon Favreau directed? And so when I looked up the movies, I saw he directed Elf. I hate that
Mhm.
movie with a
Ah,
passion.
I love that
Horrible.
movie. Fucking
I
hater.
despise Elf. There's some Scotty Holiday lore for you. Uh, I saw he did the Jungle Book live action remake and The Lion King,
Mhm.
like you said. Both movies I was not interested in seeing because, from what I heard, they were basically just soulless remakes of the
Yeah.
animated classics. So, seeing those movies up there being the ones that I recognized, I was like, oh, this isn't looking good for Jon Favreau. However,
Yeah.
like you said with the Marshall is such a standout episode, and that being like the season 2 opener wowed me. It was
Mhm.
amazing, and I agree, it was almost like a short film, and
Right.
I we even learned that by the way they even changed like literally the dimensions of
Yeah.
the film to show like wide shots and whatnot.
IMAX, yep.
It was gorgeous. So
Mhm.
I feel like The Mandalorian, Din Djarin in this story is kind of Jon Favreau's baby. We
Yeah.
know that before The Mandalorian was even a thing, it was Jon Favreau had a Mandalorian story, Dave Filoni had Mandalorian stories, and Kathleen
Mhm.
Kennedy was like, hey, work together because I think this would be cool. So part of me is wondering if maybe this is John's chance to go in and get to do the story that he wanted to do, within the
Yeah.
confines of what's been set up already. And then Dave
Mhm.
Filoni's kind of getting to do what he wanted to do initially. Part of me was also like, is he getting a movie because they gave Dave Filoni a movie? And so they're like, oh, I guess we better give John a movie too, or else he's going to be pissed or
Gotta
like
get
throw a
both
fit.
siblings.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think honestly it could go both ways with Jon Favreau directing because in Star Wars I feel like he's done really well besides season 3, but like you kind of brought up, I don't really feel like season 3 was 100% his control. Like I'm not trying to be like
Yeah.
some conspiracy theorist or be like those YouTubers like Kathleen Kennedy took over because obviously that's not what happened. Kathleen Kennedy has been involved from the beginning with The Mandalorian. That's why she's involved in this movie,
Hmm.
which by the way, this kind of shuts down all those rumors you hear about Jon Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy hate each other, which they've shut that down at Celebration. Jon Favreau's like brought out Kathleen Kennedy and been like, this woman right here is why I'm able to be so creative today. But
Literally.
anyways, um, I think that this is also going to be really cool for George Lucas because George Lucas is all about technology and technological advancements within movies doing something new. That was one of
Hmm.
his biggest criticisms of The Force Awakens and the new movies is they don't really do anything for cinema as a whole, you know? First 6 Star
Yeah.
Wars movies, every single one changed cinema in one way or another, whether it was visual effects or just like the way stories are told. George Lucas was always about revolutionizing the industry, and I think that we could see that here. Now, obviously, I'm hoping that it's not some like AI shit or let's
Oh God.
technologically advance the AI Luke deepfake, but you know, I just think that with the way Jon Favreau has, brought in technology with like the volume to the
Mhm.
Mandalorian, and then, I know the Lion King and the Jungle Book aren't, critically acclaimed, but in terms of VFX and things like that, like it definitely revolutionized the industry. I don't know if it's good or
True.
bad, they can make cartoon animals into like a documentary now, but so I don't know. That's why I feel like it could go either way with Star Wars.
Well, you would know about going both ways, so.
Oh, the fuck is your problem today? uh, But another thing I'm excited about with this movie that kind of eases some anxiety I've had with the future slate of movies is
Mhm.
Lucasfilm needs something huge for their movie return. And I think they kind of realize that. I love Daisy Ridley as Rey, and
Mhm.
people know I'm excited for that movie. You're excited for that movie,
Same,
despite
yeah.
how we feel about the sequels. Um, I'm excited to see where it goes. But at the same time, I was stressing about that being the first movie back. I mean,
Oh my
we're
god, yeah.
we're already kind of seeing like a huge hate campaign towards it. So I think that no matter what happens, the media is not going to be super kind to that movie. So I think that they need something that's going to be like a huge comeback. Like even James Mangold's movie would have been a good one, but I think this is a good way to do it.
That is crazy because now you're getting me into conspiracy territory. Because if we think about what's been going on with comments made about women in the fandom with Charmin Obaid
Mm,
Chinoy and, comments she has made in the past that have been taken out of context that people like Ben Shapiro are talking about.
right.
So I'm like, is this why we've got this little article being like, surprise, we're actually getting a Mandalorian movie because
Yeah.
everybody loves The Mandalorian and we have like no information on it, or at least we're not going to tell you any of it, but we're just going to get this buzz out there. I'm
Yeah.
like, is that why this just happened on a random Tuesday? They're like, let's
Yeah.
stop the Ray movie hate and Sharmina Obaid Chinoy and misogyny.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Mando and Grogu are coming to the theater. Oh, and by the way, Ahsoka season 2 is in development. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, nothing's unintentional with marketing, so I could totally see that. They're trying to get away from the bad press, do some good press. I don't know though. I wonder if it's working in their favor, if people are excited about this or not.
I mean, I think so. If you think about it, you know, the last Star Wars movie that we saw in a theater was The Rise of Skywalker in 2019.
Hmm.
And despite how that movie was received and how we feel about it, in general, Star Wars coming back to the theater is something we've all been long waiting for.
Yeah.
So it's just exciting in general as a Star Wars fan. And if we think about it, this is like the first big thing that's come out in 2024 with Star Wars because we don't know when any of the shows are airing yet this year, but we at
Hmm.
least now know that we're getting a Mandalorian movie and an
Yeah.
Ahsoka season 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Which Ahsoka season two, we didn't really talk about that. I mean, we talked about that it exists, but it's cool to have a
Well,
confirmation now.
yeah, especially because so many of the actors they kept getting asked. I think it was even Rosario Dawson recently was talking about like, yep, I still don't know anything, but
And she said that they were having like a dinner
they were
the
going
next
to a
day.
cast dinner. Yep, you're
Oh
right.
fuck, so they probably like had all this laid out for them. Like
Oh, I hope it was a better presentation than what we got.
I mean, I'm sure that they know more, but like that was something I was thinking about earlier is like I mean, I know we talked about it's possible that Bo-Katan could be flagshipping the Mandalorian show and then Din and Grogu move to the movies, but um I think that it would be really cool for like someone like Katie Sackhoff to be in the movie as Bo-Katan.
Oh,
Like
for sure.
that would be fucking great. Like just seeing the way Katie Sackhoff, like her career has kind of been at an all-time high lately since The Mandalorian. Like that
Hmm.
just makes me so fucking happy for her to see her like on screen in a Star Wars movie, in like a movie that has the chance to like break $1 billion at the box office. Like that just makes me
Yeah,
happy for the cast. You know what I mean? Or like people like
me
Amanis Fondi. Like just starting out. Now he's like in this whole fucking universe. It's crazy.
Mhm.
It's got to be so
Yeah.
exciting.
It is really exciting when we think about it for the people that could be involved with these movies, the people that they have set up and introduced in the Mandoverse. And with Katie Sackhoff, like I know she's done other things than Star Wars, but like for me, my introduction to her was the Clone Wars animated series, then Rebels. Now watching her come into live action as Bo-Katan in The Mandalorian, and just thinking of either her taking over the Mandalorian series moniker or coming into this movie, like there's no way that Din's not going to make a stop at Mandalore. Like
Right.
why would he not? He would have to go to the armorer for
Hmm.
something, have a little question, but would be there. I mean, I know it's not necessarily an official source, but like the Galaxy of Heroes mobile game
Hmm.
just released Bo-Katan Mandalore or Mandalore
Mm.
Bo-Katan, and it specifically says, Mandalore with the Mand and apostrophe Allure or whatever the fuck it is. So like they're calling her the
Yeah.
Mandalore, and even though that game is not necessarily canon with everything in it, like they do follow what goes on when they do their character packs and updates and whatnot.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think the future
Setting
is
up for
looking
something.
bright for not only Bo-Katan, but also for the Mandalorian in general and Din Djarin specifically.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. This has me feeling super optimistic about the Mandoverse, kind of more optimistic than I felt lately. Like I said last episode, I think a lot of it has to do with just not knowing like what's happening next. Where is this story going to continue? Are we going to have enough time to continue it?
I think they were totally fucked with the whole Rangers of the New Republic issue
Mhm.
and that just kind of
Yeah.
having to get dissolved. So I'm not surprised that they're kind of switching things up a bit and why we got season 3, which felt a little disjointed. But I feel like, yeah, we're getting back on track.
Oh, totally agree. All right, on Twitter, we asked you guys how you felt about this news, and we got some responses, which we'd like to share on here. As always, if you'd like to get your comment responded to on the podcast, follow us at wayseekerspod on social media. We're always posting questions and such to interact with y'all. So, our
Yes.
first one here comes from @_Dan on Twitter. He says, I am definitely intrigued by the decision, but also very worried considering capping a Din and Grogu story at 2 hours can make it
Mhm.
really poorly paced. That being said, if Carson Teva is in it, I'm giving it a 5 stars on Letterbox. Definitely agree there. Love Carson Teva. But if I'm being honest, I think that with the way the Mandalorian and Grogu story has kind of been going, I think that the 2.5 hour mark is actually going to be better for them because I feel
Yes.
like with season 3, it was like they were trying to find more ways to get more story in there. You know what I mean? It just didn't stretch 8 hours. What do you think?
I'm really on some conspiracy theory shit now because I'm like, you're right, and I'm like, yeah, I almost feel like 8 episodes is too much for Din because he doesn't give anything.
Hmm.
They kind of killed his growth as a character. But
Hmm.
I'm also like, is that also because Pedro Pascal is not there? So everyone's like, well,
Right.
if the face doesn't care, then do we really need to care that much? Which don't get me wrong. Uh, Brendan Wayne and Lateef, what's his last name? I don't remember
Lateef
his.
Crowder.
Lateef Crowder. They do an amazing job,
Oh yeah.
and like the sass is there.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I almost feel like this would be better for at least where Din is currently at.
Yeah,
Uh,
because I feel
so
like I said, the whole point of season 1 and 2, or at least what felt like the point, was that Din was kind of getting away from the whole helmet rule and kind of the, I don't want to say toxic, but there is kind of toxic vibes with the watch there.
toxic. Fuck the
Yeah.
children of the watch.
I mean, I know some people kind of feel some type of way. It's very deeply connected to religion, so
Religious trauma, and
it's
I
it's another
empathize with
topic for
them.
another day.
Yeah, I wish I don't wish I had religious trauma, but I wish I could understand like
Hmm.
or like feel understand what they feel with the
Right.
children of the watch. But for me, I'm just like fuck the children of the watch. I hate them.
Yeah.
Go away.
Yeah.
So I'm glad Bo Katan's Mandalore now. Hopefully, we'll see some changes.
Yes. 100%.
The next response we got is from at Donovan Mead. I'm pretty excited, honestly. It'll be cool to see the show blown up to feature film scale, especially considering Jon Favreau's work directing the Marshall episode. Perhaps Mando gets caught in the middle of an early New Republic slash Thrawn skirmish. Well, I like that idea. I mean,
Yeah.
they echoed kind of what we said about the Marshall, but I think that could be cool if it kind of picks up after Thrawn
Hmm.
gets into his first emergence with the New Republic, especially out in the Outer Rim, because I feel like if it was out in the Outer Rim, the New Republic would be severely not understaffed. Jesus Christ, I can't even think of the word.
Underprepared.
Underprepared. They wouldn't have enough fighters, and they could really use a pilot like Din to kind of help
Yeah.
save their asses, even if it's just like Thrawn scouts that he sent out or something. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I said earlier about like Din Djarin kind of being involved
Mm,
in that early uh fight with the Imperial Remnant. I like I said, I think that it's probably going to be Din Djarin who kind of finds evidence for the New Republic to actually take it seriously because like I said, as we saw in Ahsoka, they're not taking it seriously. The New Republic has no care in the world. So I think that there needs to be something that kind of catalysts the whole thing to make the New Republic actually care. So
it might be nice to see them take a hit,
yeah,
like kind of knock them down. To everyone complained about Thrawn and Ahsoka being like, "Oh, well, he kept saying he got what he wanted, but he really didn't do anything, or he actually just lost. But he
yeah,
said he still learned something." So it'd be nice to see Thrawn actually like get a hit in on the New Republic, something like you said that'll really be a catalyst for what's to come.
yeah. Not Luke's shaft following us on ways.
Oh my god, and it's so funny because I saw my phone light up and I was like, "Shit." I'm looking to the side as I'm finishing my statement, so anybody that's watching is gonna see that. And then to know that Luke's underscore shaft started following us, I feel like a fucking shout out at Luke's underscore shaft. Thanks
Oh,
for
should I keep
following
that in
us.
the episode?
Sure.
Fuck it. We're being honest. We just got followed by Luke Shaft. Shout out Luke Shaft. All right, our next response comes from Is Star Wars Tia. Love you, Auntie. She says, like everyone else, I'm cautiously optimistic. Their story ended well, so I don't know what more story there is to tell other than them going on adventures or bounty hunting. Or getting back to his farmer lady and finally get a love story. Ooh, shout out Omera. I do not disagree with that. Get him back to Omera. What the hell?
Honestly, he's got a nice house that she could move into on Navarro.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't have to work because, she wouldn't have to be out in the fields anymore because she'd have her man to take care of her.
Right.
Not that she needs a man to take care of her because she's a bad bitch, as we
Well, she
saw.
seems like she wanted him to take care of her. She was real into him.
I don't blame her, but yeah, I agree. I think kind of we've both said in maybe different words that we're both cautiously optimistic as well.
uh-huh.
And kind of like Tia saying, what more is there to tell? Yeah, it's almost like it's going to be a soft reboot. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of how I'm feeling after, talking about it with you.
Yep. They're reinventing the wheel here, so we'll see what creature they turn into a baby next.
Oh god. Baby Dexter Jetster.
Oh.
And then the last reply is from at Lady Dragon JJ. They said, cautiously optimistic. I want more Grogu doing silly things, being a menace, using the Force, and napping.
Yeah.
Honestly, the one person we've barely talked about in this entire episode, I feel like, is Grogu.
Yeah. There's so much to cover, but
But kind of like at Lady Dragon JJ said, all he does is silly things like being a
uh
menace, using the Force, and napping. So
mhm.
it's like, what is he gonna do?
Who knows? I want to see him grow up a little bit. I'm hoping that they're not just going to keep him a baby for the whole time.
Oh my god, I know. If I have one complaint about Grogu, it's that
Mhm.
I'm ready for him to get a little bigger, get a little older.
Right.
Um, you
But then
know,
again, it's like with the constraints of like the sequel trilogy, right? Like that takes place what, only 30 years after what we're seeing here in The Mandalorian. So is he even able to develop much at all in the next 30 years? And I mean, you know that the big war isn't going to be anywhere farther than like 10 years from where we're already at with like 1080Y.
Yeah, I mean, but if we think about it, like Grogu is a Mandalorian now too. So if something happens on Mandalore again, I think Din and Grogu would go and fight on Mandalore before
Hmm.
they'd fight. Even say it's during the sequel trilogy era. The First Order wants to take over Mandalore because the Empire and the First Order, everybody hates Mandalore because they do their own thing.
Right.
So they always want to conquer Mandalore.
Right.
And I could see, just like Sabine, Grogu would want to go to Mandalore, Din would want to go to Mandalore. Bo-Katan would probably ask them to come. So I could see them off dealing with Mandalore shit, especially come into the sequel trilogy era.
Hmm.
And Din will probably be dead by then. So maybe
Oh, don't
Grogu
say
will
that.
be. Well, it's a sad truth.
These are Dave Filoni characters,
You're right.
so
Just like Ahsoka, they'll never die, unfortunately. And I
yeah,
say that as an Ahsoka stan.
yeah, they'll just problematically sit out of some of the biggest galactic wars of all time, and that'll be it.
Yeah, well, only time will tell, and
Yes.
we probably won't see Grogu after the Mandoverse movie until Rey's New Jedi Order, so
Yeah, if he's not involved in that, that's kind of a big missed opportunity.
it'd get people a lot more on board, but
Yeah.
also, I just have to say, specifically in the article, they mention Charmin Obaid-Chinoy's movie.
Yeah.
So all the people that keep saying it's canceled, it's not happening, it's not real, it's fucking happening. Get
You heard it
over
here
it.
first.
Star Wars is for everyone.
Yes. Period. Heard it here first, second, and third. All right, Scotty, why don't you take us out of here?
Yeah, this was a really great episode, really exciting news. Make sure to follow us on social media and wherever you get your podcasts at wayseekerspod. That way you don't miss any episodes going forward. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next Friday back on our regular schedule. And may the force be with you always.
Bye.
Bye.